So this is not a theoretical paper. These are not theoretical papers in the making. They're coming in with, here's the solution, here's the value add.
Looking forward to seeing the first use cases on Hedera.
Stay tuned for that. Very soon.
Yeah, very soon, okay. Today I'm excited to speak with Monique Morrow, Independent Board Director at Hadera. I truly believe that tokenization will fundamentally change the way we invest in the future, making ownership more accessible, dynamic and transparent. Hadera is one of the leading networks driving this innovation forward, and Monique is right at the heart of it. Today we'll dive into what tokenization really means, how telco stablecoins could reshape industries, and what role Hadera plays in this exciting future. Let's get started. Hello, Monique. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Really pleasure to be with you, Steffi. So it's really great to do this in English. We did it in German, and so exercising languages, but also making sure that we're all well understood by your audience.
Today we're diving into a topic that I personally believe will change the way we invest in the future. It's called tokenization.
Yes.
It's like a buzzword. Tokenization still sounds abstract to many of us.
Sure it does.
What's the core idea? And how is it actually changing the way we invest?
Sure. And people can throw out numbers of how much this market is worth, in the trillions. Let's make it less abstract and kind of break it down for everybody. So fundamentally, tokenization is like the process of converting what we'll call real right assets into a digital token on a blockchain. That's the most fundamental definition, but we'll break it down even further. So it's tech jargon, yeah. The core idea is pretty much straightforward. So it's about making ownership more accessible. And so it's transparent through this technology. So an analogy that I like to make with my colleagues is like slices of assets, slice of an asset. So think of tokenization. So we get to break down the narrative a little further as chopping up something physical and or financial assets. Physical, like real estate, Immobilien in German, right? Immobilien, art, or even shares in a startup, into many small pieces. So one thing is, and then you represent each piece with a digital token. And these digital tokens live on the blockchain. And they serve as, we can say, secure and, all the words that we've heard, decentralized, a record of ownership. So instead, for example, of needing $1 million to invest in a commercial property in real estate, Immobilien, you may need only $1,000 or 1,000 euros to buy 1,000 tokens representing fractional ownership in property. So it's fractional ownership. That's kind of digitally fractional ownership. So how is it changing the way we invest? One of the things that we can think about is, number one, fractional ownership is kind of well understood. Investors can buy small portions of a high value asset. So this would lower, for example, what would be the result or implication? It lowers the barrier to entry for assets that are traditionally reserved for the very, very wealthy. So real estate, Immobilien, art, venture capital, and so on. So fractional ownership. Number two is 24-hour, 7-day-a-week global markets. So I'm going to break it down before we go into this. So on this whole issue of tokenization. So what that means is tokenized assets can be traded on digital marketplaces that are 24 hours, 7 days a week open, and they're global, unlike traditional markets.
Like a normal cryptocurrency.
Yes, right. So and with geographical restrictions that you have to wait. So it's very, very, very frictionless. Number three is you get increased liquidity. So previously, for example, with illiquid assets like Immobilien or collectibles, they could become liquid, but with fractional shares, you can be bought and sold, individually. So you can easily, I would say, frictionless again. Number 4, we can talk about transparency and security because it's tamper-proof, it's blockchain. You can see the record of transactions and for the intermediaries. I think number 5, which really started, is programmable finance. So tokens can have built-in rules, and these are rules via, as we probably have known, smart contracts. I started in smart contract programming a long time ago, enabling automated, dividend distributions, compliance, even voting, for example, voting rights, and more. So this kind of builds us into what I'll call the aspects of tokenization and how we kind of break it down further in terms of what it looks like. So that's the first part of it, and I think you have probably other questions related in terms of real life examples. How that would work out. I think that's where we probably want to go. We want to make sure people have kind of an understanding of what it means, right?
Hey, wusstest du, dass viele Plattformen beim Kryptokauf unnötig hohe Gebühren verlangen? Genau hier setzt Bitvavo Powered by Hive an. Bitvavo Powered by Hive ermöglicht dir, Kryptowährungen zu handeln und das zu einer der niedrigsten Gebühren auf dem Markt. Keine versteckten Kosten, einfach nur fair und transparent. Die Plattform ist zudem reguliert und benutzerfreundlich, perfekt für den Einstieg in die Kryptowelt. Über den Link unten in der Beschreibung kannst du dich in nur wenigen Minuten anmelden, verifizieren und dir 10 € Willkommensbonus sichern.
Thanks for breaking it down so clearly. Now let's make it even more real. Can you give us a real life example? Maybe something already live or planned on Hedera?
Sure. And great questions. I'm going to talk about financial markets. I'm going to talk about real estate and also consumer engagement loyalty. These will be the 3 main categories of examples. So in financial markets, what we have is tokenization of assets like stock, like bonds, like commodities. They revolutionize trading and investment. So basically makes illiquid assets, as I said before, more accessible to a broader range of investors. And so faster, cheaper. Example, Aberdeen. So that's ARBRDN, Aberdeen. Aberdeen, yeah. A colleague from used to be on the board. Well, he's on the board with me, but he's no longer with Aberdeen. But still, he understands the space very, very well. Leverages, for example, the security and efficiency, what we have in Hadera, the tokenization service to tokenize parts of its money, market funds, or what we call MMFs. And they're low risk investments, vehicles really that investors can turn to fundamentally. And they return and they offer investors a return, sort of increases the what we'll call their interest rates. But when MMFs, and this is another aspect of it, release cash to investors, the cash must be reimbursed to achieve the equivalent annual percentage. Now, this is a lot of financial lingua franca here, a return. So placing administrative burden on the investors. So what does that mean? Tokenization, or the implication of an MMF, enables the investors to benefit from same-day payments. Okay, and they have the income automatically reinvested. And so, what would be the result, or the implication, would be increased liquidity and process efficiency. So that's with financial markets as an example. And the second one is real estate. I always go to real estate because it's used commonly, and it is. There are real cases.
Yeah, it's a real use case for everyday users.
It's your everyday tokenization here. Fundamentally, what we'll call democratizes real estate by allowing fractional ownership of properties. Okay, so this could lower barriers for smaller investors, and provides what we'll call more liquidity in the market. And so an example is Red Swan. And they're a commercial real estate company with $5 billion in assets under management. And they built a token studio on Hadera. They did. And for real world asset, what we call real world asset, RWA, if you look, RWA tokenization, real world asset tokenization. And so through this platform, what they've done is users can participate in creating and investing in digital security tokenized assets. And so another aspect of this is by fractionalizing the assets on the platform, the studio built on Hedera allows users to own a piece of commercial real estate. And that traditionally has been out of the reach for small investors. And there was an example of, I think, one person or lady who's trying to say, how many Gen Zs or Gen Xs or whatever, whomever, they don't have, where can you get the money to be able to actually own a piece of real estate? So it's a step forward toward that.
Yeah.
The third category commonly talked about is consumer engagement and loyalty. And so here we believe and we show that tokenization revolutionizes really the gaming. So gaming, right? Gaming. Yeah, gaming.
Web3 gaming.
Gaming industry. Yeah, right. So gaming industry and enabling players is really, really powerful right now. It's hugely powerful to truly own in-game assets as non-fungible tokens or NFTs. And so this could create, for example, a new revenue streams for developers. And it would empower, for example, players to trade assets on different games. And an example, real world example is Karate Combat. Karate Combat leverages Hedera to engage fans and reward fighters in what we call an unprecedented way. It's just very, very new and very novel. And so what you have as a result is the creation of a karate token, and it gives fans a stake. So they have ownership in the league, right? So if I go in and I have a token, I have ownership in that league, and enables them to participate and get excited over a number of fights, and of course, beyond being passive viewers. So instead of just sitting there viewing, they're now becoming active because they're also owning a piece of the game itself. So that's Karate Combat. So in sum, you have Aberdeen, Red Swan, and Karate Combat.
Gaming, real estate, and the first one, finance.
Finance, yeah.
Very different use cases, how you can use tokenization on Hedera.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of real-world applications, there's a further use case. It's called stable coins.
Right, so stable coins. So we were talking with stable coins, a big discussion right now, especially we call it in the telecommunications industry.
Yeah. They've written a paper on telco stablecoins.
Well, it's about ready to actually. There's a meeting tomorrow next week. It's about ready to be published actually, and people would ask the question.
What exactly is a telco stablecoin? Can you explain it?
Well, so for example, what you have is you have when a carrier, a telco, settles, when they settle something. When they're settling, whether it's in,
let's say, a Telecom and Vodafone, for example.
So if you have Vodafone settling with another carrier or whatever, they're also settling with banks, right? So that's one aspect, but it's usually kind of a binary. It's usually a one-for-one settlement. So stable coins, what happens is now you have the opportunity to match it to something called fiat with blockchain. You have also a blockchain underpinning it. And so stable coins for Europe or Euro or whatever as part of the settlement basket. And some people will say, well, is that really, really going to be kind of different these days? But one of the things we're working, I think, together on use cases. So that paper is coming out, but it's been examples of what they think could be possible and also useful, and to lead into what we call. So this is still in its infancy, as well as tokenization for telco in its infancy, for some of the use cases. These papers are tokenization papers, just about ready to. Well, I'm one of the editors for it. Again, working with a group of carriers, particularly in Europe, but also solution providers, to look at how we can use wonderful cases for this. What we have is that we believe at a broad basis that distributed ledger technology would enables telcos fundamentally to be more impactful. And Hedera is working on this also with regard to our work together with artificial intelligence, with AI. So the whole idea here is thinking about tokenized spectrum when you're spectrum sharing, or how it's not only just settlements, as usually that was used to be the low hanging fruit. It's got to be better than that. So how do we deal with tokenized spectrum sharing amongst providers that we can own a piece of it? I think we could drive the adoption of a token, especially in spectrum sharing and so on, rather than being left out. It makes sense because we have a relationship with a carrier, right? It makes sense for us to get in this way. So one thing that let me break it down into five key points that would be greatly interesting.
Yeah, what could be the benefits for the telecom
So
industry?
telcos,
What's the difference between classical fiat
trusted
and
data
stablecoin?
sharing? Yeah, trusted. So, well, stablecoin. Think of it as sort of this basket right now. This is a basket. I think that they could actually link it to blockchain. That could link it to something that will be very, very, I think, even more impactful as they kind of bring it up to their value chain, which is starting to happen now because the banks are getting involved, right? If their banking relationship starts to be engaged in this space, then it becomes much more interesting, right, for them, and that makes it useful. So that's why they're kind of very closely to how they're dealing with the banks. For us as customers, it wouldn't be so clear. I think it's just more clear amongst themselves, right?
How would
we're
it
end
affect customers?
We wouldn't. They could add services that would be DLT related. So, for example, you can think about telcos using, we'll call it trusted data, using DLT or just data DLT to securely exchange roaming. Roaming data is an example. Roaming, right? They could
cross-border payments.
Yeah, detect fraud. They could have service quality. That's an example, right? Cross-border payments. They can have an issue around decentralized identity. They can streamline, for example, SIM registrations, and know your own customer, for example, KYC, using self-managed digital IDs. I mean, you can get into the Internet of Things as digital IDs. I mean, getting into that, I know that some of the carriers, particularly here, are very, very interested in that space. Loyalty and rewards is an example. Telcos, for example, may explore, as I think, tokenized loyalty points that are easier to manage and potentially more engaging. So those are kind of the ideas. Micropayments for 5G or IoT. We haven't even touched 6G, but micropayments. So if you have fast and low cost, for example, transactions, DLTs could support distributed ledger technology. So we're talking about that. New pay-per-use models in connected services. And lastly, sustainability tracking, ESG, for example. And so public ledgers could offer out transparent to a way to track and share emissions and ESG data. You use so much data by doing this, and here's your tokenized coupon for that, and you may want to donate it to a charity of your choice, or so something to that effect. These are lots of ideas that we've been talking about, and they're very intensely involved in these particular discussions. So that would be kind of examples.
Do these use cases rely on HBAR at the moment? What role does the network play here, actually? Is there actually adoption?
For which? For what? For
the use case of the stablecoins, or is it just imagination? Or
no, it's not imagination. There are so the whole idea when we publish when these papers they're about to ready, right, is to come out with actually solutions. So some of the groups are offering solutions, and that leads to RFPs, requests for proposals which will lead to actually and minimal viable products. So there are groups that are exploring their already minimal viable product solutions. So this is not a theoretical paper. These are not theoretical papers in the making. They're coming in with, here's the solution, here's the value add, here is what it means to add value, to increase revenue, especially from a CFO's perspective within carriers.
So at the moment, you're working at solutions with the telco industries.
Yes, we are.
Great.
We're one of the groups amongst several others. So it's a really great partnership, because now you can see the fourth, and especially with some of these carriers, how forthright they're looking into it, how they're thinking about, hey, these could potentially create new models for us and create new revenues for us, and we are very serious about it. And some of whom I met last year in Connection 3 conference in Dortmund. So they're really really coming in to the space. Yeah.
Great. Looking forward to seeing the first use cases on Hedera.
Stay tuned for that. Very soon.
Very soon. Okay.
Yeah.
You keep up. Before we wrap things up, Monique,
sure.
Let's do a few quick and fun questions, I would say. Just pick your answer. You don't need to explain it.
Okay.
The first one is, will tokenization become a normal part of everyday investing by 2030? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for the very reasons we've been discussing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where do you recharge best? At a blockchain conference or on a beach vacation?
Where do I recharge best?
Recharge best. Blockchain conference or
I recharge
beach?
on a vacation first and foremost. I think you need to do that, to have that, because that's where I'm actually thinking and reading and all. When I'm at a blockchain conference or with other conference, it's a different type of recharge. It's more stimulating, right? I just learned. I just met you, or I just met certain other people. That's a different type of recharge. But recharging for me is bimodal, and that means resting and then thinking, and really really letting go. Right? You really do have to let go. It's really hard sometimes in our industry, but I do. And the other aspect is looking at the next thing, I mean, what is always about value, and looking at the really cool conferences that are occurring and really wonderful events like this event that we're having today.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go a step back before you can go further.
That's true.
The last question is, what's your last look before going to sleep? Your crypto wallet or the weather
app? Actually, neither. I'm neither, because
no mobile phone.
No. I mean, I do. I look at the value that I have in the wallet, but that's not the last thing I look at, and I certainly don't look at the weather app. I mean, because I already kind of up. I think I'm just the last thing I look at before I go to sleep is usually what I've read in a book or something. It's usually that. Or it may be a film that I'm looking at or something to that effect. I kind of pivot in a different way in terms of being able to not being tethered to my phone. I think it's more important for that aspect, but that gets into another discussion. So I'm not going to be hyperventilating over my crypto wallet. I mean, I look at it once a day, a couple of times a day, but that's not the last thing I look at it.
Not the last thing.
And then the weather, I'm already kind of tuned in with the weather. so I'm actually looking. So what's really important for me is like what cool event I'm going to do with some friends over the weekend. Those are like other things. Because for me, it's also about being with a group of people who are different backgrounds, and we're looking at, that's kind of a recharging opportunity too.
Yeah, thank you. Monique, you got it.
No, thank you so. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your insights at Hadera. I really enjoyed the talk with you.
Yeah, I did too, and they were great questions, fantastic questions, a good flow, and it allows us to explain a little more concretely what we're doing with real world, examples. So all I can say is stay tuned in this particular space, because there's more to come.
That's it for today.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Drop me a comment. What do you think about Hadera? If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps me to keep creating more content for you. You can also check out my other videos where I explain HBAR and lots of other crypto topics in a simple and easy way. There's plenty more to discover right here on my channel. I'm Steffi and stay fascinated by crypto just like me. See you in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.